Hi, I'm Steve from Technoworks. In our first video we just gave some tips about how to actually install the pipe, how the fittings went together, gluing the fittings and that type of thing. Part 2 we're going to continue on from where we left off from part 1 with some more tips and some of the design criteria around the points and inlets on a ducted vacuum system. Don't forget you can get all your parts you require for your own ducted vacuum system online at www.technoworks.com. Thank you. Here's a typical in-wall setup for a ducted vacuum system. We actually have our trunk pipe coming down, usually from the ceiling, down the wall, through the nogging, down into the area where we're going to mount our plate. Typically, most people will mount their plate 300mm off the floor or standard PowerPoint height. You can adjust that height. Some people like to mount it up 500 or whatever. Just a comfortable height for you to use it, like I said, but you would not mount this below 300 normally, 300 centre. Now, a couple of interesting things you'll see here. You'll see here's the stud bracket which has been attached to the stud, and then there's a short 90 sitting in behind the plate here, and then we've got a short piece of pipe, and then we're going into a sweep. This arrangement here is called a gravity trap. It's quite important. What happens is if you're vacuuming and you turn the system off, dirt's being sucked up and it rises to here, hasn't been taken right back to the system, and you stop the system, the dirt will fall back down. If you don't have the gravity trap, the chance are that if the pipe went straight into the inlet, the dirt would drop back down into the inlet. Next time you put your inlet fitting in, you'd be pushing it over that dirt, damaging the seal within it. Because we've got a short horizontal section here, the dirt would sit back here, and next time the machine started, that dirt is sucked away and taken up to the ducted vacuum motor. Now you'll also see on here, as well as our ducted vacuum fittings that we have bringing the pipework down, we also have some control wires. And on this one here we have two wires. We have a wire coming in from the motor, and then a wire going away to the next inlet. And a little trick that we've learned over the years, offcuts of pipe are really useful. Cut the offcuts of pipe into short lengths, cut them with a pair of tin snips so they're pliable to that, and they make great pipe clips. So they actually make great wire clips, hold the wire in place and keep out of the way of the gyprock and other things. Just a very simple little thing, something you can do and to help the installation. But that's a typical, like I said, installation. The other thing which makes it, this pipe here, the gravity trap, can be adjusted, which allows you to take the pipe up to miss things like trusses, beams and other things. So you can vary the length of this. The minimum you should have is basically a short 90 with a T, hard, that's the shortest. But if you wish to extend that to have a 150mm gravity trap, that's not a problem. That's not going to cause the system. On the other side here we have a point here which is set up to replicate a floor point, where it's in an upstairs level and it's actually going down. So what we got is we've got our point, but in this case, instead of the trunk line going up inside the ceiling, trunk line is actually going down through a lower floor into the, it could be an under house area, or it could be the floor below. And what we've done here is we've used a short 90 behind it, but here we've used a 45, and then basically the pipe goes through the floor. Now this same thing allows us, because the distance we put on this piece of pipe here, we don't really need a gravity trap here because dirt's just naturally going to fall, but this offset here allows us to adjust where the penetration is in the floor, where the pipe goes down. So there may be a beam underneath which you need to miss, so you can move that a couple of inches either way to actually miss what's underneath the floor, and makes the installation a bit easier. But again, very simple, and you'll see there we've got our little clip that we've put on there to hold our wires out of place for the control wires. And like I said, one of the wires actually runs to the motor, and the other one would run on to the next point. And the wires actually run in a daisy chain fashion, so they run from point to point to point to point. So in a centre point or an immediate point, we're always going to have two wires. At an end point, like the vacuum end, the vacuum motor end, we're going to have one wire, and at the very furthest point, we're only going to have one wire. Here we have our arrangement at the top of we've got our pipe rising up, coming from like a downstairs point below, coming up into, say, a ceiling space. So we're using a sweep out the top, and then we're going across into the trunk line. But we also have a T here which is teeing off to go to another point. So what we've got here in this particular instance, because the sweep turns this way, the motor is actually down this direction. This point here is actually going off to service another room, and you see what's happened is the cable now actually comes down goes down, and then the return cable comes back out to go to the next point. Again, you can see we've got some clips on there to keep the wiring nice and neat and out of harm's way. What you should also look at doing when you're mounting this up in the ceiling space, and it's going to be in an area where people may be crawling through it, is to sit the pipe, make sure the pipe is resting and settled down if need to be, so it can't move around. Someone crawling over the top is not going to damage the pipe. Try and keep it out of those crawl spaces and try and keep it away from possible damage. Now that you've seen some of the basics on installing a ducted vacuum, some of the do's and don'ts on how to install pipe, how to cut it correctly, how to glue it correctly to make a reliable system. We have other videos which actually show you how to actually do the planning of the actual system, say the layout of the system. I suggest that you have a look at those if you're planning on doing a system. For all the other information, the TechnoWorks website has a great amount of information and all the products are available. We can ship them anywhere in Australia. Hope this has been useful, and until we talk again, thank you.